Alright, let's dive deep into my world a bit more. Name's Nelly, and if you haven't guessed it yet, I'm all about that precision life. Crunching numbers by day at this beast of a trading company, and by night, I'm basically the queen of organization. My life's motto? A place for everything, and everything in its place. It's not just about being neat, it's about control, knowing where every penny of my hard-earned cash is going. My pals, bless them, they find my obsession a tad amusing. Nelly, you're the only person I know who gets excited over a new filing system. They'd chuckle, shaking their heads in disbelief. But, hey, I swear this stuff has saved my skin more times than I can count. So, there I was, at this shindig thrown by a couple of friends from work. Not my usual scene, I'm more about cozy nights in with a strong cup of coffee and spreadsheets for company. But there he was, Jake, this slightly older guy with an easy smile, leaning casually against the bar. He had this manager vibe going on at a local car parts store. Not exactly Mr. Wall Street, but the man had a certain something. We got to talking, him with his beer, me with my meticulously chosen glass of wine. So, you're into economics, huh? That's like predicting the future with numbers? He asked, his voice tinged with genuine curiosity. I laughed, a bit louder than I intended. Something like that. It's more about making sense of the chaos, finding patterns where others see mess. He nodded, taking a sip. I get that. I'm all about order myself. Ever tried organizing a storeroom full of car parts without losing your mind? Can't say I have, I admitted. But it sounds like a puzzle. A frustrating one, Jake agreed. But satisfying when everything fits just right. Our conversation rolled on, smooth and easy. It was a breath of fresh air, talking to someone who didn't just nod along, but actually got it. We shared stories about our work, the challenges of keeping things in line, and the odd satisfaction of a well-organized spreadsheet. Weeks turned into months, and our casual meetups became something more. Jake had this straightforward way of cutting through the BS that I really admired. He didn't dress things up or play games, he was just real. One chilly evening, after a dinner where we'd both complained about our day, Jake turned to me, his expression serious. Nelly, I've been thinking. I raised an eyebrow. About? Us, he said simply. I know I'm not the kind of guy who goes for grand gestures, but I'm pretty sure I've hit the jackpot with you. I could feel my heart racing, the anticipation building. And I'm thinking, why wait? Nelly, will you marry me? He fumbled slightly as he pulled out a small, velvet box, revealing a ring that was elegant in its simplicity. It was so Jake, no fluff, no extravagant speeches. Just a straight-up proposal. And it was perfect. Yes, Jake. A million times, yes. Planning a wedding, you'd think it's all about lovey-dovey stuff, picking flowers, and tasting cakes. Well, add a bit of family drama to the mix, and you've got a whole different ball game. Me and Jake, we decided to keep it simple, just close friends and family. Little did I know, the definition of simple was about to get a reality check. Jake's sister, Emily, she's got these 4 kids, right? Little tornadoes, I swear. The moment we announced our wedding date, I could see the mischief in their eyes. Jake, bless him, he's all laid back. Kids will be kids, Nelly. They'll be fine. Famous last words. As D-Day approached, I found myself knee-deep in seating charts and menu choices. One evening, Jake and I were finalizing the guest list. Are we sure about inviting the whole crew? I joked, eyeing the names of Emily's kids. Feels like we're summoning a hurricane. Jake chuckled, wrapping an arm around me. They're not that bad. Plus, Em needs a break. It'll be fine. Fine, I echoed, not entirely convinced. But love's about compromises, right? I figured, how bad could it be? Cut to the wedding day. The venue looked like something out of a dream, all decked out and ready. That is, until the mini hurricanes made their grand entrance. Running around like they owned the place, I watched as my carefully planned day teetered on the edge of chaos. Mid-ceremony, one of them knocked over a vase. water everywhere. I caught Jake's eye, and for a second, he looked as panicked as I felt. But then, he just grinned and shrugged. That man, I tell you, unflappable. At the reception, Emily was off mingling, her kids running wild. Jake and I were trying to make rounds, thanking guests, when one of the little darlings decided to showcase his food fighting skills. I felt something splat against my back, cake, icing, and all. I spun around, ready to blow a fuse, when Jake caught my hand. Hey, it's just cake. Let's not sweat the small stuff today. Small stuff? Jake, they're turning our wedding into a circus, I hissed, trying to keep my voice down. He leaned in, a smirk playing on his lips. Makes for a memorable day, doesn't it? Memorable was one word for it. By the end of the night, I was exhausted, covered in various food stains, and sporting a headache from the constant din. But as we made our escape, Jake's hand in mine, I couldn't help but laugh. Your family's nuts, I told him, shaking my head. Yep, but now they're your nuts too, he teased, pulling me closer. Great. Just what I always wanted, I replied, rolling my eyes, but leaning into his embrace. After the wedding whirlwind, me and Jake settled into our new life together. It felt like playing house at first, both of us tiptoeing around each other's routines, trying to mesh our worlds without stepping on toes. We were living in this cozy, rented apartment downtown, close enough to both our jobs that the morning commute was a breeze. But it wasn't long before the newlywed bliss phase started to wear thin, and the real work of building a life together began. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, I found Jake sprawled on the couch, surrounded by a mountain of real estate listings. What's all this? I asked, dropping my keys on the counter. Jake sat up, a spark in his eyes. I was thinking, why not take the leap? Let's buy a place of our own. The idea of buying a house hadn't really crossed my mind yet. Are we ready for that? That's a big step. He shrugged. We're not getting any younger. Plus, think about it, no more rent, a place we can actually call ours. Come on, what do you say? I couldn't deny the appeal. The thought of having our own space, decorating it just the way we wanted, hosting dinner parties, and maybe, just maybe, starting a family, filled me with a mix of excitement and nervousness. Okay, let's do it, I said, the decision feeling right despite the butterflies in my stomach. Fast forward through the headache of house hunting, and we're standing in front of this quaint place that's now ours. It's got a backyard that's begging for a barbecue and more rooms than we know what to do with. I took the lead on kitting out our new digs, making sure everything was just perfect. Jake was all for it, but he couldn't help poking fun at me for keeping every receipt for the furniture and appliances. What's this, the Nellie Museum Archive? He'd chuckle, flipping through my meticulously organized folder. Hey, you never know when you might need to return something, I'd retort, not letting on how much I loved that everything in our home was picked out by me, with my own cash. It was more than just being responsible, it was a piece of me in every choice, every purchase. It felt good, building something together, making decisions. But beneath the surface, there was a tension brewing, a silent elephant in the room that neither of us wanted to address. I couldn't get pregnant. Months turned into a year, and every negative test felt like a tiny heartbreak. I tried to keep a brave face, focusing on our home, my work, anything but the growing fear that maybe motherhood wasn't in the cards for me. One night, lying in bed, Jake broke the silence. We don't have to keep trying, you know, if it's too much. I cut him off. No, I want to keep trying. It's hard. He pulled me closer, kissing the top of my head. We'll figure it out, okay? Whatever happens, we're in this together. His words were a balm, but they couldn't quite chase away the shadow that had settled over us. The joy of our new home was tinged with the sadness of what was missing. Despite the struggles, life went on. We hosted barbecues, celebrated holidays, and filled our home with laughter and love. But the guest room that we'd earmarked as a nursery remained empty, a silent reminder of the one thing we couldn't seem to achieve. The whole ordeal with Emily and her brood turning our wedding into a zoo was getting out of hand. She'd rock up from the next town over, dumping her chaos at our doorstep with a "Hey, just passing through." Like clockwork, her arrival spelled the end of any peace and quiet. The kids, bless their hearts, were a handful, to put it mildly. Running around like they'd just been let out of a cage, screaming, fighting, you name it. And Emily? She'd just plant herself on our couch, launching into the latest saga with her husband like she was the star of some daytime drama. One of those Saturdays, she's mid-rant about her husband's new prank or something, and her kids are practically swinging from the light fixtures. I'm there, trying to keep my cool, but inside, I'm a second away from losing it. Emily, can you maybe, I don't know, get them to tone it down a bit? I ask, my voice tight with that edge of I'm trying not to scream here. She barely glances up, waving a hand dismissively. Oh, they're just being kids. Let them be. Let them be. Sure, it being means turning my home into a circus. It was later, during dinner, when the real kicker came. One of the kids decided to turn his spaghetti into a projectile, launching it across the table. I snapped. That's enough. We do not throw food in this house. Emily's face turned stormy, and she hit me with, maybe if you had kids of your own, you'd understand. That stung. More than she knew. Jake's there, but he's doing his best impression of Switzerland, staying neutral. Or maybe more accurately, siding with his sister by not siding with anyone. It felt like a betrayal, him not stepping in, not backing me up. Later, I corner Emily in the kitchen, trying to keep my voice level. You know that was out of line, right? What you said earlier. She's unapologetic, all but rolling her eyes. Oh, please. You're overreacting. It's just kids being kids. I'm fuming, but there's no getting through to her. And Jake? He's no help, always with the she's going through a tough time excuse. Like that's a free pass to disrespect our home. It got to the point where every ring of the doorbell had me tensing up, wondering if it was another surprise invasion. I loved Jake, but his inability to stand up to his sister, to see how this was tearing at the fabric of our quiet life, was driving a wedge between us. One evening, after yet another chaotic visit, I cornered Jake. We need to talk. This can't go on. He sighs, running a hand through his hair. She's family, Nellie. What do you want me to do? Stand up for me, for us. I shoot back, my frustration boiling over. Your sister's behavior, and those kids. It's too much. He looks torn, but I can tell he's struggling to see it from my side. I'll talk to her. He finally mutters, but the promise feels hollow. So, there I was, on what was supposed to be a quiet weekend, transformed into a live-in chef and babysitter for Emily's brood. She breezed out the door, off to shop, leaving a tornado of demands in her wake. I want spaghetti, one shouted. No, make pizza, another demanded. The chaos was enough to make my head spin, and that was before the TV volume cranked to a level that could probably be heard in the next city over. Just as I was about to lose my last shred of sanity to the symphony of kitchen timers and cartoon explosions, an eerie silence fell over the house. Anyone who says silence is golden has never had to deal with kids. That kind of quiet? It's the calm before the storm. Dread settled in the pit of my stomach as I stepped out of the kitchen, half expecting to find the living room turned into a war zone. What I saw instead stopped me dead in my tracks. There, in the midst of the living room, stood Jake's nephews, covered in paint, with my grandmother's painting, the one she'd passed down to me, the one thing I'd cherished above almost everything else, ruined. Streaks of paint obliterated the once beautiful image, turning it into a mockery of its former glory. The anger that surged through me was like nothing I'd ever felt. What have you done? My voice was sharp, a whip crack in the silent room. The kids, sensing the shift, scattered, leaving me alone with the wreckage of my heritage. The fight that ensued when Jake and Emily got back was apocalyptic. You were supposed to watch them. Emily had the gall to accuse, her words fanning the flames of my rage. These aren't my kids, Emily. It's not my job to watch them every second. I shot back, my voice hoarse with anger. Jake, ever the peacekeeper, tried to intervene, but there was no stopping this. Nellie, they're just kids. We'll fix the painting. He tried to reassure me, but the damage was done, both to the painting and to us. That's not the point, Jake. That painting meant the world to me. It's about respect, about understanding. Something your sister clearly lacks. I was beyond reasoning, the betrayal, cutting deep. The argument spiraled, words like knives, leaving wounds too deep to see. Jake sided with Emily, a choice that stung more than I cared to admit. After that, silence. Not the tense quiet before a storm, but the cold, empty silence that fills a room when there's nothing left to say. Ever since the whole painting incident, things between Jake and me were tense, like a string pulled too tight, ready to snap. That breakfast, though, that's when it all came crashing down. Jake, in his infinite wisdom, decided over coffee and toast that it was the perfect time to drop a bomb on me. So, Emily split up with her husband. She's gonna stay here, with the kids. Just for a few months. I almost choked on my coffee. Wait, what? Here? Jake, do you even remember what happened last time? This house can't survive that kind of storm. He sighed, the kind of sigh that said he was bracing for an argument he thought he'd win. It's family, Nellie. We can't turn them away. Besides, you're great with the kids. I snorted. Great with them? I'm not running a daycare, Jake. I have a job, remember? The one that pays for half of everything in this house? He wasn't budging, though. She's coming over tomorrow. We'll figure it out. Figure it out, right. Because we'd done such a stellar job of that so far. I couldn't let it go. What about renting them a place? I'll pay for the first month. They'll have their space, we'll have ours. Everyone's happy. But Jake shook his head, stubborn as ever. It's better if they're here. You know, family support and all that. Support. That's what he called this impending chaos. The argument spiraled from there, words sharp and heated. You can't decide this without me, Jake. This is our home, not a halfway house, for every relative in crisis. He shot back, just as angry. They're my family, Nellie. Should I just turn my back on them? No, but there's a limit. There has to be. The conversation ended with slammed doors and silent treatments. The next day, when I needed to get to work, my car keys were mysteriously missing. A call to Jake revealed the final betrayal. Emily needs the car more than you do, he said, like he was doing me a favor. That was it. The last straw on a back broken by compromise and sacrifice. While Jake was off playing savior, I took action. I called the movers, directing them to every piece of furniture my paycheck had ever touched. The living room set, the dining table, even the damn curtains. By the afternoon, the house was empty, a shell of the home it once was. I drove to my mom's, the back of my car filled with the last bits and pieces of my old life. She was waiting, as she always did, with open arms and a pot of coffee on. Jake's going to flip, was all I could say as I walked in, the weight of my decisions heavy on my shoulders. Mom just nodded, pouring me a cup. Sometimes, you have to stand up for yourself, honey. No matter how hard it is. As I sat there, sipping coffee in the quiet of my mom's kitchen, I couldn't help but smile, imagining Jake's face when he walked into our empty house. It wasn't spite that warmed me, but a flicker of hope, a sense of freedom. I had drawn a line, finally, after months of being erased and redrawn by everyone but me. In a few hours, my phone lit up like a Christmas tree with calls from Jake. I didn't pick up. Couldn't, really. I just watched the count of missed calls climb, each one a reminder of the storm I knew was brewing. By evening, the storm broke right on my mom's doorstep. Jake showed up, mad as a hornet, ready to have it out then and there. You've lost your mind, Nellie. Calling you a thief would be putting it mildly. He roared the moment I opened the door, stepping into the quiet of my mom's living room like a whirlwind of fury. I kept my cool, even as my hands itched to wring his neck for bringing all this drama to my mom's house. Thief? Really, Jake? Let's get this straight. You took the car, our car, saying you bought it, so it was yours to give away. Well, I took back what I paid for. Fair's fair. His face went through about a dozen shades of red and purple as I laid out the receipts on the coffee table, proof of every penny I'd spent on our home. This isn't how you solve problems, Nellie. Oh, and letting your sister and her circus take over our lives was a solution? I shot back, my patience worn to a nub. He was pacing now, like a caged animal. Where are they supposed to sleep, huh? You've left my sister and her kids without beds and blankets. I shrugged, all out of sympathy. Sounds like a you problem now, Jake. That's when he played his last card, the threat of divorce hanging between us like a guillotine. I'll file for divorce. I swear, Nellie, I will. I didn't blink, didn't flinch. Instead, I reached into the folder I'd kept close all day and pulled out the divorce papers. Beat you to it. Here. I've wanted out for a while now. Sign them, and you're free to play the hero all you want. The silence that followed was deafening. He took the papers, scanning them like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Then, without a word, he signed them. Just like that, it was done. He left as quickly as he'd come, leaving a wake of stunned silence behind him. After the dust settled from the whole divorce saga, I found myself in this weird limbo, caught between relief and uncertainty. Jake and I sold the house, split the money down the middle. Through the grapevine, because small towns have nothing if not an efficient rumor mill, I heard about Jake's new setup. Him, Emily, and her rowdy crew crammed into a small apartment. The thought of it brought a mix of emotions. There was a petty part of me that wanted to revel in the schadenfreude, but mostly, I just felt sorry for him. Jake was working himself to the bone, juggling 2 jobs, to keep them all afloat. And Emily? Still not lifting a finger, still the queen of her own little drama. I ran into Lisa, one of our mutual friends, at the grocery store. Hey, Nellie, you heard about Jake's new place? She asked, all casual, like she wasn't dropping the latest town gossip. I shrugged, tossing a box of cereal into my cart. Heard something about it. Sounds cozy. Lisa laughed, shaking her head. Cozy's one word for it. Heard they're at each other's throats half the time. Emily's not making things easy. I sighed, not sure what to feel. Well, he made his bed. Now he's gotta lie in it. Lisa patted my arm, a silent show of support. You're better off, you know. You seem lighter, somehow. Lighter. That was exactly it. The weight of constant compromise, of living in a perpetual state of tension, had lifted. I was starting over, and the freedom of it was exhilarating. My new apartment wasn't much, just a small, bright space that was all mine. Decorating it felt therapeutic, a way to mark the beginning of this new chapter. My mom helped, her presence a comforting constant in the whirlwind of change. You need anything else, honey? She asked one afternoon, surveying my half-unpacked living room. I looked around, taking in the boxes, the bare walls waiting to be filled with new memories. No, I think I'm good. Thanks, Mom. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. One evening, as I stood back to admire a particularly vibrant canvas, my phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. Curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it. It was from Jake. Hope you're doing well, Nellie. I'm sorry for everything. I stared at the screen for a long time, the words blurring before my eyes. The apology was unexpected, a small olive branch after months of silence. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to maintain the walls I'd built around my newfound peace. But another part, a softer, more forgiving part, typed out a response. Thanks, Jake. I'm doing okay. Take care of yourself. Sending that text felt like closing a book I'd been reading for too long. There was no going back, no desire to revisit old chapters. I was ready to write new ones, stories of my own making. and for the first time in a long time, I was excited to see where the story would take me.